Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Ways and Means Committee. I'm John Quincy, the chair, joined by Council Vice President Glidden, Councilmember Palmisano, Councilmember Yang. I know Councilmember Bender is on her way, but Councilmember Andrew Johnson is not able to join us today, so we hope he has a speedy recovery from his overexertion, perhaps, at raking leaves on a nice weekend. So, but it has led to some bad back pain, so we feel bad for that. Okay, well, I think we have a pretty full agenda. I know the presentation that we'll be receiving at the end of today's agenda is on the fourth quarter results. That's the 2016 final numbers. So we hope to have some conversation about that. But the rest of the agenda, I'll just read through quickly, see if we can get all those items approved. Item number 1 is the legal settlement. Item number 2 is from the City Coordinator's Department. This is the Good Works Program donation acceptance for Farmers Market Marketing Services. The convention brings forward 2 items. One is an agreement with MnDOT on the new Skyway Bridge and a contract amendment for Gunner Electric for a closeout on contracts. Finance and Property Services Department brings forward a contract amendment with Minnesota Department of Transportation for city use of land under the highway bridges. We also have a gift acceptance for January and February, and then a low bid from Central Roofing for the roof replacement projects at Fire Station 17, 21, and 28. The Human Resources Department has a series of contracts with selected vendors for human capital consulting services, kind of creates a pool, making it easier for everybody to work with for the next several years. The Information Technology Department brings forward a contract amendment with Halogen. Contract amendment with ShotSpotter Inc. We also have a contract amendment with Morphotrack and Safran for maintenance and support of the Layton Station fingerprint system. Contract with Getchna USA Corporation for replacement software at the city's citation issuance. And a contract amendment with Safari Books Online for some IT electronic books. We also, from the Executive Committee, have a referral. It's the collective bargaining agreement with the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 70, as well as and stationary engineers. Let's see, item number 15 is the environmental grant funding applications for the spring 2017 Brownfield Grant Round that came through the Community Development and Regulatory Services Committee, as well as a contract with Minnesota Workforce Council Association for regional workforce planning, and a contract with Hennepin County for job fairs in 2017. The Health, Environment, and Community Engagement Committee brings forward a request for proposal for community solar garden development, license agreement with Minneapolis Public Schools for use of school sites in a health emergency, a grant for, excuse me, from Ian Summerland at Halder Foundation for Minneapolis Animal Care and Control. Public Safety, Civil Rights, and Emergency Management Committee brings forward the non-standard form contract for the International Association of Firefighters for fire ground survival training, as well as a contract amendment with SMG for bomb and 911 dispatcher services at US Bank Stadium. The Transportation and Public Works Committee brings forward the Winter Street Northeast Alley reconstruction projects and an agreement with XL Energy to convert overhead electronic facilities to underground electronic facilities. That's on the 4th Street East, Southeast project. And we also have the bid for bituminous mixtures, and that's with Tiller Corporation. Those are the 25 items that we've identified on the consent agenda. If there are any questions or comments, council members? Not seeing any. All those in favor of those items, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Those items are approved, so thank you very much for that. Which allows us, Ms. Johnson, are you going to be able to do this? This is the presentation on the 2016 fourth quarter financial status report. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair Quincy and committee members. Pleasure to be here. Lori Johnson, representing the Finance and Property Services Department, Deputy CFO. I also have in attendance Mary Dunning and Lyle Hodges from the Controller's Office, who have worked diligently on much of the information that goes in here. So we're here today to present the fourth quarter financial report, the review showing the status of the funds as they end on December 31, 2016. So we're in the process of wrapping up 2016, working on 2017, beginning 2018 budget time. So Interesting time for us. We've got a lot of numbers floating around. So I'm going to focus on the 2016 numbers. And as you know, the year ended on a good note. We are in strong financial position. The city's cash balance is $766 million, which is an increase of about 11% over 2015. We met the fund balance requirement of 17%, so we continue to be in a strong financial position. This is important because of pending issues with local government aid and some other issues that we'll talk about as we get to the end of this report. We do anticipate that at the end of next year, we'll be close to that 17% fund balance as well, with some additional pressures due to, as I mentioned, the local government aid and other cuts that may be proposed at both the state and the federal level, as well as just the cost of doing business. But we did meet those requirements for fund balance and net position in all of the city's funds. I'd like to go over the general fund initially. The general fund is the fund in which all of the city's day-to-day activity occurs: public safety, public works, day-to-day operations of general government. The end-of-year fund balance in the general fund, $107.5 million. This is an increase of $1.5 million over 2015. And as you may recall, the 2016 budget included use of $24 million. This is a planned use of the fund balance. The ending balance, as we talked about previously, meets the 17% requirement. The 2017 budget is $497.8 million, which requires an $84.6 million fund balance. Of the fund balance at end of 2016, $10 million will be assigned to the 10th Avenue Bridge. There's $1.4 million for one-time expenditures in the 2017 budget, again, planned use of fund balance, and then $67 million that will come forward in rollovers at a future Ways and Means Committee meeting. We anticipate that 2017 may be slightly less than 17%, but very, very close. And again, that's due to some right sizing of the budget and some other issues that might be coming forward. Going on to the major revenues in the general fund, we have total revenues, including transfers of $476,706. That's about 3% above what the budgeted amount was. Property and local taxes make up just over half of the budget, about 52% of the total revenues. Property tax collections were on track with very low delinquency rate, and in fact, when you factor in payments of past delinquencies and excess tax increment, the amount is slightly above the budgeted property tax amount. State aids account for about 18% of the budget, $84 million in total. Of that, about $68 million is local government aid. As far as development, the development fees remained strong. It's a positive thing that development continues to be very strong in Minneapolis, and the fees reflect that. The two categories that were down were franchise fees and fines. Franchise fees were down due to warmer weather, with the electric and gas fees just not selling as much, and therefore those franchise fees went down. Fines were down due to new technology and parking and fewer ticket issues. Next is just a bar graph showing some history of those major revenues, and you can get a feel for how some of the revenues have changed over that time frame. Moving on to the major expenditures in the general fund, the total expenditures, including transfers, $475.2 million. That's under budget by 3.5%. The departments and department heads manage their budgets well, living within their budgets. There were two items that I'd like to note in here, and those relate to the contingency. The contingency was used for two purposes, partially to fund some election needs with the general election in November, and part of it was used for police personal service costs. Another item to note is that the Park Board received a payment for this from the city in 2016. That payment of $1.5 million is shown in the Finance and Property Services budget, rolling up to the coordinators department. So that's where you'll find that expenditure. And again, here, just a bar chart showing some history and trends in the major expenditures. Moving on to special revenue funds. The special revenue funds account for activity that is dedicated towards certain purposes. So fund balances are dedicated or reserved, committed for specific purposes. A couple of those being the Convention Center, Target Center, some grant programs. Overall, the fund balance decreased slightly to $314.5 million, mainly due to the large Target project that's going on and some deferred expenditures that will occur there. And the cash balance increased about $2 million, just under $2 million, to $284.7 million.
Thank you. Just a quick question, if we could talk a little bit more on the fund balance, especially around the Target Center, the Arena Fund.
Correct.
That is reduced, the fund balance, but that was a planned reduction because of the expenses affiliated with that.
Correct, related to the project.
So the overall fund balance for those special revenue funds, are they up or down in general? Anything unusual happen?
There was nothing unusual. It was planned with the project that was going on at the Target Center.
So we're using cash as planned,
As
appropriate for those projects. Thank you.
Correct.
Okay.
Moving on to the internal service funds, these are charges that we charge back to ourselves, services that we provide internally, such as the fleet services, property services, public works stores, IT, and self-insurance fund. The costs at year end, we had a net position that increased about $6.8 million to $182.9 million. Cash increased $4.7 million to $149.1 million. Again, this was planned. There are increases that were needed to shore up some of those funds and to build up reserves for future needs, particularly related to IT, which is an ongoing demand that we have. We're adding new programs, new software, new technology to various departments. We need to make sure that we have the funds available to sustain those, and also with our self-insurance fund. Moving on to enterprise funds. So there are several enterprise funds where we sell items, services, goods to residents: water, sanitary sewer, stormwater, solid waste and recycling, parking, and then there are also some CPED enterprise funds. The end of year net position increased $25.8 million to $934.7 million. Cash increased $24.4 million, mainly due to some bond proceeds that were issued for projects, to $140.2 million. This may sound like a lot of cash. However, there's significant ongoing needs as far as expanding and sustaining that infrastructure and constructing capital projects. So those reserves are needed for those purposes.
You were talking earlier about the fines being down because of some parking technology, the meters, et cetera. How's the parking fund in general, or specifically, performing to plan to budget?
To my knowledge, the parking fund is on target. However, I would defer to Mary or Lyle if they have any additional information on the parking fund. It is tracking as projected.
Yes. What we've experienced in the last couple of years is, although the fines were down because we're issuing less tickets, but the revenues are actually up, well offsetting that loss. So on a net position,
Correct.
It's very important to realize.
Correct, because of the way the meters
Right.
or the technology changes the way the funds are collected.
Right.
Right. So, oops. Again, just ending the year stating that all of the funds were on track, met net position, met fund balance targets, with some planned expenditures, some planned decreases in those fund balance, but basically on target. I'd like to visit a little bit about rollovers. So we have rollovers coming forward to the Ways and Means Committee at your next meeting. There are certain criteria those need to meet in order to be considered. They must be one time, they must be a valid encumbrance, have a year-end fund balance, have a business purpose, and as a whole, the positive fund balance requirement of the fund. So again, those will be coming forward to you at your next meeting. In addition, I talked briefly a little earlier about the pressures that are coming, and you're all watching the state and federal laws and proposals that are rolling forward, and I want to touch on those briefly. The IGR team is monitoring those closely and provided some updated information to me that I want to pass on regarding local government aid. There's a proposal that would cap the city's local government aid at $50 million. This equates to a loss of $28.1 million for the city, or a levy increase of 9%. So that is a significant item that we are watching, and I know you are all watching that as well. In addition, local government aid here is shared amongst the park and MBC board, so not just the city would be affected, but those other two entities as well. Another item rolling forward that is a reduction to the city is a proposed repeal of the Minneapolis library debt, which would be a loss of $4.12 million per year beginning in 2018. So we would have some time to anticipate and fund that. One that we would not have time to anticipate in a future budget is a proposal to MRF, the Minneapolis Employee Retirement Fund. The proposal eliminates the previously agreed upon $10 million in state funding. So the employer's obligations would remain at $31 million until 2031. And this proposal would include a reduction in 2017 revenue of $5.6 million per year beginning this year. So that is certainly very concerning for us. Construction sales tax, one positive item is that they're looking at exempting construction materials from sales tax. So that would be a good item. So those are all the state proposals. At the federal level, of course, there's a lot of discussion about CDBG grants and other items that at this point we just really can't anticipate what would happen, but that's all on our radar, both as we work within the 2017 allocations that we have and also as we look forward to programming for 2018. So with that, we will stand for any questions that you may have. And again, I'll just conclude by saying that the departments did a very good job of monitoring their budgets in 2016, and the financial position of the city remains very strong.
Hard to beat those last words. I was going to say the same thing, so thanks for saying them for us. Very pleased, obviously, especially for our department heads on managing a complex budget in complex times. And it's good we had some reserves that we're able to forward so we could make sure we could meet our obligations at the year end in a couple of departments for very good reasons. And the rest of everything was online as pretty much as projected. So it's really responsible budgeting and well done by our Finance and Property Services Department. So thanks, Mary. Thanks, Lyle. Lori, very well done. Any other questions from folks? Not seeing any. I think I'd like to move to receive and file this report. And any other questions, comments? Not seeing any. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That's great. With that, our business is complete and we stand adjourned. Thanks very much.